Cheers! And welcome to Vinyl Happy Hour, our weekly show where we show off 5 of the best new vinyl releases of the week, especially some indie store exclusives. And tonight, I've got some super secret special editions to add on for the Record Store Day, kind of the Part 2 release that's coming out June 18th. So watch to the end for that. But we're going to jump right into it because there's a lot of great things to show off this week. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe because we do have these weekly videos, and drop some comments. I'd love to hear what you think about the show, and thumbs up, likes are always appreciated as well. I'm Skylar Davis. I'm a huge record collector, have been since I was a child, and I'm owner of Culture Shock Clothing and Records here in Rockford, Illinois, and of CultureShockShop.com, where you can find the records we're talking about tonight, at least for a limited time because some of them are limited. Obviously, we're not just talking about 12-inch single records. I did want to show off this week. There's some releases that aren't just regular LPs. I'll just briefly mention Laura Jane Grace at War with the Silverfish. This is a 10-inch EP from her, and it's from Polyvinyl Records on clear vinyl. I believe it's an indie store exclusive at any rate. It is a limited version of it on color vinyl. I've known Laura Jane Grace for a long time, but originally I really got into her because she was the leader of Against Me, a really great, kind of like a folk punk band or something like that. I'm not sure what you're trying to call. And this was when, before her transgender came out. She's also one of the most well-known probably in the punk community for transgender awareness and stuff like that. But this is when she was Tom Gable. So that's when I first realized, who that was. And then a couple albums out now as Laura Jane Grace. And still continuing that folk punk attitude. This is a lot more stripped back, a little more folky, a little more stories, a different sound. But still, if you liked Against Me or when she did some Tom Gable solo projects too, you're going to like this. So check it out. Of course, it's Pride Month as well, so a lot of awareness with all of that too. Check them out live if you can too. Her band is really cool. I saw them at Riot Fest a while back. She did one of her sets from her solo albums and an Against Me set. Live music is always best. Records are truly second best, but besides that, like I said, that's just a 10-inch record on clear vinyl. This, I don't have an open copy. I'd like to open this or buy it for myself, but I'll just kind of mention briefly how cool a lot of reissues are. This is Prince and the Revolution Live, 1985, in Syracuse, New York. It's a triple LP. That's right, yeah, that's why it's in like this cool box set. It also has this cool sticker on it and gold embossing lettering on it. Looks like a really great box set. It is all music from Purple Rain and Controversy. So some of the biggest hits of that Prince group, and looks like a killer live show. There's a booklet that comes with a 16-page unreleased photos and stories and stuff like that. Just really cool packaging though. So besides records, I just want to mention there's 7-inch records, CDs, 10-inch records, box sets, all sorts of things coming out. And reissues, even a recent reissue. This album is not very old at all, but there is an indie store exclusive of the Olivia Rodrigo Sour album that is just now out. And it's gatefold, nice glossy jacket. Oh yeah, let's show off the gatefold, of course, though, too. I'm sure you've probably heard her. She had her start on Disney, I know, with some music and things there. The Driver's License song blew up for her. I believe she was only 17. This album just came out a year ago or so. And this is the indie store exclusive, finally, printed inner sleeve. There have been a few versions of this available. It's cool that they're finally putting out the indie store exclusive, meaning you can only buy it from your favorite local independent record stores like Culture Shock or from our site at CultureShockShop.com. There's a link below to that too if you do want to pick it up. Even if you're local and want to reserve an in-store copy, you may want to in case it sells out. But there's so many hits on this. This is just such a good sounding recording, just a great indie pop album, very heavy into the pop and electronic. Of course, there's probably some comparisons to Taylor Swift and other pop artists of the era right now. But there's even a little bit of a pop punk sound on a couple songs too. So she's been super popular. It's cool to see some of these really large artists getting indie store exclusive variants also. So check that out. Oh, I kind of made my drink bait. I was like, what, the pink vinyl, you got Prince and purple. I was trying to pick a drink based on tonight. I kind of made my own version of something. I actually threw some Slipknot whiskey in there with a little bit of lime juice and diet squirt, and it's very sour. and some bitters. It's a very good drink. So I was like, Olivia, with the sour album, I'm going to do that. Let's talk about integrity. Let's show off this record first, because Relapse Records has been doing some really awesome and epic metal and reissues, but they're doing a lot of these really cool splatter variants. There's been all sorts of multicolor imprints and things like that. This is, it's translucent. I'm going to say red and black. Let's see if the jacket tells me, or the sticker tells me what color that is. There's no numbering on it, but I think it's probably only 1,000 copies. Oh, it's blood red with splatter. It's not just red, it's blood red. So this is Integrity Systems Overload from 95. What's really interesting is that Arthur Rizk, that's how you pronounce his name, R-I-Z-K, who produced and did some stuff with Code Orange, Creator, and Power Trip, had mastered this. So it's an angry album. I was a little angry earlier, actually. I listened to it. I feel better now. It's like good to get out some aggression and listen to some really heavy metal. This is like punk metal, hardcore, mid-90s piece. This band is still around, still going. They're actually based out of Europe now, but they did start here in the Midwest, actually more in Cleveland area, I think, in Ohio. But the release, let's talk about the jacket itself and the vinyl. You can see super cool gloss printing. It's got this red and black splatter, but hopefully you can see there's like this skull on the cover, and even on the back, the track listing. It's like at first it just looks like artwork with nothing on it, but there is some spot printing where you can see all of the track titles on it. Just nice little attention to detail. The inside is even printed of the jacket. Hopefully you can see there with more of the art that's on the outside, printed on the inner sleeve even. And, whoops, we get a poster as well. This has one side, of course, has all of your lyrics and shout outs and band members and all that stuff. But I'm just going to cover myself up so hopefully you can see this huge poster. Really cool art. Integrity is, they have a punk edge, but they're considered more metalcore in a way. And I think this was even on Trustkill Records, which, even though Relapse reissued it, did a lot of metalcore bands and hardcore bands of the era. Super cool release, but really great packaging. Original vinyl, I can't remember. I'm sure, I don't even know if this has ever been released on vinyl. There's that era of 90s and 2000s stuff where, unless you went and saw the band tour or found it in a store, they didn't make very many copies in the 90s and 2000s of most records. Super cool to see that getting reissued. If you have patience, you will find some of these records that are hard to get, or even modern ones that they're doing limited pressings of or getting reissued. My next one is another one of those. So Pink Floyd, really early, Saucerful of Secrets, their second album. I believe this was in '68. A couple years ago on Record Store Day, they actually reissued the mono version of this, which is what I'm showing off here right now because I have an open copy. And then that was in 2019. Now 3 years later, and some of these have been selling and trading for higher prices too. They are finally reissuing it, the original mono version. If you think you know Pink Floyd but haven't heard this album, you don't know Pink Floyd. Because Saucerful of Secrets and some of their earlier albums are very psychedelic, very trippy, very noisy, experimental. This one, being in the mono recording, meaning that both the music on the left and the right channel of your stereo and headphones or whatever come through with the exact same music. Whereas the stereo version of this, parts of where they have like the choir or vocals are going in one channel, or maybe the second guitar or part of the noise is going in on the right channel. It's separated stereo sound. So this is the mono mix. Originals are extremely hard to find because that's the era when everybody started getting stereos and stereo music was more common. So the reissue, I noticed it's actually different colors, so this will set it apart because the original, or not the original, but the Record Store Day pressing from a few years ago has a different run-out number, a different color label. This is going to have your like dark label with a gold instead of the silver label. But they reused the same jacket, so the jacket looks the same as the one from a few years ago on Record Store Day. So that's kind of weird, or kind of frustrating that they didn't make it a different jacket. But anyway, regardless, it has been repressed, so if you've had patience, and this did sell out. I remember on Record Store Day when we had it. I only have this because somebody actually sold their record collection. And I picked this out of there here just recently for myself, but I didn't even realize it was getting reissued. I really freaked out when I got it because I was like, oh, I never got a copy for myself. We sold out of them on Record Store Day at Culture Shock when that came out. So finally it has gotten reissued. I do like, although this one has like a different label number on the record inside than it does from the jacket, I do like this cool sticker though, because it's a little more detailed, has the tracks on it, and it has a cool picture of the band. So if you care about the hype sticker or whatever, that's pretty cool. But of course, it's more affordable. It's a regular new vinyl price. This, since it has sold out, has been selling for kind of higher prices. It's all the Bernie Grundman. This is actually from the original tapes. Bernie Grundman, who's very renowned for remastering and making copies of records, has taken care of that from the original analog tapes. So yeah, from the original mono tapes from June of '69, which was the original UK release date. So I said 68. Oh yeah, it is 68. I just misread it. So anyway, definitely check this out if you're a Pink Floyd fan. You need to go back and check this out. And if you think Pink Floyd, their radio well-known stuff, isn't your cup of tea, but you like more psychedelic stuff or more experimental stuff, things you haven't heard so much, you may want to check this out. And this is when their original founding member, Syd Barrett, was still in the band, which he was only around for a couple of albums. But anyway, so finally Saucerful Secrets is reissued. Father's Day's coming up, get that. So, all right, let's talk. Let's take a little sneak peek, because this is kind of a funny one too, because Record Store Day, which happened this year on April 23rd, there was like a couple dozen releases that weren't ready in time because of all the demand of vinyl and everything going on in the world. They couldn't get them done in time. So now we're kind of having like a part two, I guess we're calling it, or just a Record Store Day drop happening June 18th, which happens to be Culture Shock's 16th year anniversary, which we're doing a little celebration for that as well, for the locals who can make it in for that. But anyway, let's talk about, I'm just going to show a jazz piece and a hip-hop piece. A lot of the releases that are coming out aren't even here yet. What's also hilarious is that these were stickers, or hype stickers were already printed and made, so they have the April date on them, even though it's coming out June 18th. But Viktor Vaughn, I've been waiting for this one for a long time. I'm sure a lot of MF Doom fans have been. This is the Viktor Vaughn, the Vaudeville villain, excuse me. So MF Doom dropped this album, I think, in '03. And I didn't even know the story on it, because he'd been working with Madlib to do the Mad Villainy album. And I guess it got leaked on the internet. 2003 internet must have been a really interesting time for stuff like that to be happening. So this was actually just an album he put out, just kind of on a whim. It's a double LP. It's a killer album, just great underground hip-hop. One of the many releases we're dropping here in June. This one is not available on the website yet. This is an in-store only one, but I just wanted to sneak peek it, talk a little bit about it, show it off a little. But anyway, originals now and even the reissues are selling for a couple $100. Super cool to see they're putting out a batch of them on Record Store Day. I forgot if there's a number, but there's probably a couple thousand, I would hope, at least, getting released. I think we're going to have about 15 copies come 8 a.m. June 18th. So if we do have residuals left or anything available still to sell online, it would be the following day, which is Father's Day, I think June 19th at 8 a.m. We'll have them up on our website in the Record Store Day section though. So I'll leave a link for that too. But this is just a dope hip-hop piece. Such killer rhymes, just the way that MF Doom rhymed and came up with stuff, and it's got that cool, like, just New York beats, Obviously, if you're a fan of MF Doom or even anything like Wu-Tang and stuff like that, it's got that cool kind of New York street vibe to it, and just kind of, he created villages and worlds of his own kind of to rap about. Some of it's very comic related too, in a way. Just cool rapper. But then we're talking about something way older, way different. This is the Bobby Hamilton Quintet, Dream Queen. This is a choice jazz release with kind of an interesting story. Bobby Hamilton was a jazz artist, a pianist, hugely influenced. Hugely, is that a word? I think so. By Thelonious Monk. Kind of a spiritual jazz, kind of a funky jazz. He was playing around with his band, mostly East Coast, doing gigs and shows, and they put together an album, kind of like a private pressing. They did 500 copies of this album, Dream Queen, in like '72. If you're a diehard jazz fan or a record collector of rarities, it's probably been on your list for a long time. Originals are super hard to come by. Only 500 copies. Bobby said, or there's a little interview or talk with him on the back, a really cool story too, about this release, which Now Again Records is reissuing this, and they're doing it from the original master tapes, all analog transfer. So that's cool. It's a great sounding album. But the story is as interesting as the album too, in a way, just how he kind of made this as a calling card for the band. It was just like a thing to show that they had an album to get gigs. It didn't get distributed. This type of jazz, a more kind of spiritual, cool, and funky jazz, was starting to kind of fade away. Plus, he wasn't straight up in New York City. He was more in Syracuse, I think, or Yonkers. And it wasn't the thing. More fusion jazz and more like radio music had taken over. And it didn't sell well and wasn't really distributed. Original copies, though, I forgot to tell you, are selling for like over $1,000. I just wish I could find one, but I'm super happy to have this affordable, great sounding reissue copy coming out on Record Store Day from now again. It's definitely funky. There's even a couple tracks where it does get kind of far out, almost like a African Egyptian kind of funky mode. Just a great band though, with a great horn section. Super cool kind of chill spiritual jazz release. And then, you know, even the little hype sticker says, oh, let's see, that his music got kind of lost to the polyester and cocaine hype of the 70s, and now music fans are ready to dream again. Because this kind of music wasn't as popular, being as that he wasn't up in New York City and stuff, was a little bit behind the times for when this came out. And it's kind of amazing to see that the collectors have helped get this reissued, and the demand for that is out. There's only 1,000 copies though, and I think we're gonna have 10 copies. So a lot of our records and stuff that we're putting out for the follow-up Record Store Day aren't even in yet. So next week on our Vinyl Happy Hour, we'll probably talk a little more about that and what other releases you can expect to find. But obviously we want to make sure we keep up with our weekly releases, because so much stuff coming out, especially the limited stuff and indie store exclusive are what we like to feature. But there's plenty of other releases. I know there's a new Joyce Manor album out, a great kind of emo pop punk album on an indie store exclusive color vinyl as well. So please keep up with our social media and with our Culture Shock Clothing and Records YouTube, and we'll see you for the next Vinyl Happy Hour. Cheers!